Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast with Alison, a European town dweller in central Italy, and Andrea, living on a newly created family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA. Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancient ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen.
Hello, Andrea.
Hello, Alison.
How are you doing?
Super awesome. A little sore and sunburned from picking peppers and tomatoes yesterday, but other than that.
Sounds fun. We've got a guest today, so before I carry on, I want to say a quick hello to Aran, our guest. Hi, Aran.
Hello.
He's in
How you guys
Portugal.
doing?
Really
awesome.
good. Yeah. And I want to say hello to everyone who's listening, and a special hello to our Patreons, who, at the time of me sitting here recording this with Andrew and Aran, we have 7, which is super exciting for us both.
I know.
And Aran, who you're going to hear in a moment, is one of them. But we also have another 6. We have Cara, and is it Charis or Caris?
Caris. Yep.
Ira, who came onto the Cook Up last week live, Dawn, Lisa, and Annette. So thank you all for keeping us going. As I just mentioned, we put a live Cook Up on the feed last week, and we actually did it live. We have one Patreon there asking us questions. So that's on the feed now, along with lots of other good stuff. If you love what we're doing and you're interested, you can go to patreon.com/Ancestral Kitchen Podcast. And obviously, if you can't be at a Patreon, but you love what we're doing, you can tell us always, and you can leave us a review. There are instructions in the show notes for how to do that on Apple Podcasts. So now that's nicely said thank you to, I want to move on to today's guest. Andrew and I are delighted to have the chef, teacher and entrepreneur Aran Goldstein with us today. And I think I connected with Aran, I think it was earlier in the year, wasn't it, Aran? Was it still this year? Time goes so quickly.
You know, the last couple of years are a blur, so I think it was this year or last, I'm not sure.
Yeah. The reason we like Aran so much is because, firstly, he's so deep and he feels so strongly about what he's doing and the world and food. But at the same time, he's very much about the basics. He's real and he's practical. He's about giving us skills in the kitchen, but also about teaching us to listen to our body and listen to nature, to connect and to learn through connection. I think it's probably a good idea, Aran, to turn over to you to explain a little bit more about what you do to everyone, and then after that to tell us why you do what you do.
Thank you so much, Alison. Before I start, I just want to say I want to bottle up your voice. It's pretty amazing. It's like the perfect radio voice. I just want to listen to it before I go to bed.
I keep telling her that. I keep saying that. She's like, whatever.
But thank you for having me both, you and Andrea. And I'm super excited to dive into all things food and life today. So the answer to what I'm doing and why is a lengthy one. So I hope we have a few hours, but cut me off when it's time to rein me back in. But I'll quickly start. Right now I'm building a cooking show of sorts with my son. Raphael, we call him Rafa, who is recently turned 4 years old. He and I have spent so much of the past 4 years, even in his infancy, in the kitchen together, which, as you know, is so important to me. And, you know, something hit me last year as I was trying to figure out what my role in the universe should be. And I've been teaching for a very long time, and most of my career has been in restaurant kitchens, and weaved into that has been education so much. But something hit me last year when we were on our third move, our third country in this past year and a half, and Rafa and I were making another meal in the kitchen. I thought maybe I should just start recording us together and see if we can inspire families to get in the kitchen more, to normalize the act of cooking more in their own kitchens, not just for themselves, for adults, but to do so in a way that normalizes getting the children involved in the process. And, so much of what I believe comes from that idea of normalizing real food, more so than feeling like we need to restrict and strip away and take away what is not serving us, but simply by surrounding ourselves by real ingredients without labels and without things we don't understand, and just getting started in the kitchen. So that's why I'm building this show, because I'm bringing my expertise through 15 years in the restaurant world with the expertise of being a dad of a now 4-year-old and learning all that kind of messy stuff that comes with bringing a child into the world and trying to understand what's best for them, what to feed them, and all the different worries that come up around worrying that they aren't eating the right things or enough of one thing, they're not getting enough vegetables or this or that, right? All that noise. And, the deeper that I go into this work and as I'm kind of knee deep into this project of launching this show, which is going to be built within a course, I really see so much simplicity and so much opportunity for us to just kind of strip away all the noise and all of the complication and just approach things very simply. So that is the what, the what I'm bringing to the world, and the why. And feel free to ask me questions as I go. But the why comes from kind of deep inside my own childhood and my own journey of navigating my relationship with food over the years, and without going too poetic with my whole entire life, but I will just kind of try to frame it for you easily, that I grew up in central Massachusetts to a Jewish family with a mom that had Irish Catholic roots, in a family that just revered food. We loved food. It was such a big part of our daily and weekly and seasonal rituals, right? And so much of it was so good and so delicious. And I don't want to shed, a negative light on all of it, but I will say that I was also a child in the 80s and 90s in America. And I was part of a world that normalized Fruity Pebbles, for breakfast, and Pop-Tarts running out the door to high school, and cheap restaurant pizza every day in my middle school cafeteria, and all of that I realized at a point in probably my, pre-adolescence, that food in part was holding me back in a way. And I was a really, really overweight kid, especially around those, adolescent years and into those really awkward growth years as a kid. And I wasn't comfortable in my body. And it wasn't just, I have a big belly, or I have what is kind of described as like man boobs. And I had all these awkward moments as a kid, not wanting to like take my shirt off, at Shirts and Skins basketball, or feeling just really, really scared to take my shirt off at like a pool party, right? And all those just like messy things as a kid, which I know are normal for all of us, regardless of whether or not we're overweight or not, or what is defined as overweight. But beyond the physical, I knew I didn't feel good. And it kind of began my journey of just trying to kind of scratch away and try to learn more. And when it started with, reading Men's Health and being told that fat was bad. And so I started eating just plain pasta with tomato sauce and thinking that was a healthy decision, And fast forward, to the last 20 years, I've, been riding all those different waves of information and a lot of it being utter nonsense, and diving deeper and deeper and learning to just start to ignore so much of the noise and start to look within to my own body and start to understand or try to understand intuitively what is it that my body thrives on, and then start to kind of translate that trust and that openness to my relationship with my son, or I should say ours, because my wife and I are trying to navigate that as well. And I think that's probably a good place to kind of stop it and continue the conversation, and we can maybe circle back and the different things about my past that I think have shaped me.
I think I made lots of notes as you were talking, but I think the idea of there's so many diet fads, and the word you used is nonsense, kind of on the other end of the scale to the simplicity that you're trying to put across, is a journey that as food consumers, a lot of us who are eating ancestrally have taken, because there is so much out there telling us, screaming at us to eat this way, eat that way, eat this way, whether it's people who want to sell their Pop-Tart products, or people who are saying that the best way to eat is this diet, which is just cabbage and grapefruits. And to be able to gift a child with a calm sense of simplicity around food, and, like you said earlier, real food, rather than give them that. So then later, when they're exposed to all the noise that's out there, all the nonsense that's out there, they've got those firm roots. I really resonate with you expressing that as a reason behind you wanting to share what you learn and the skills that you have through this TV show. Andrea, what's in your head listening to Aran?
I love everything that's happening right now. I think everybody should go to Aran's Instagram and click his kids eating this, kids eating that. Those are my favorite. I love those videos. And my kids love them. They're like, what's he doing?
That's awesome.
That simplicity just in the video itself, a kid eating a pomegranate. The fact that these pomegranates have seeds in, and most people don't know how to get them out, just to show that is simplicity in itself. Yeah. But it's a real food. It's something that grows on a tree just outside my garden. And it's so important.
Can I tell you the inspiration for that little series?
Yes.
It's kind of fun. So as you guys know, I think last fall, I had the honor of working on this project. It is called the Village Forest School in Piemonte. And we were about kind of halfway between Turin and Milan in the Monferrato region. And we were on this beautiful biodynamic winery, and the school was set, in these rolling hills of vineyards, and we had these yurts for the kids, and they were outside during the day and doing nature walks. And I was tasked with cooking for these 20 plus kids and the staff. And so, the shared approach was that we were going to cook just real amazing food, that we were going to source organically, that we're going to source meat that was pasture raised, that was great, that was raised with love, and that we were going to just, break down all the barriers that we think we have as to what kids should be eating or what they might be game for eating. And we were working with this amazing butcher, Eduardo, we called him Ido. And every Friday he would make this incredible tripe from veal that he would slaughter himself weekly. And it was unbleached, which was a dream for me. I'm not sure I had ever actually had tripe that wasn't bleached. And he would basically just boil it and set it in its own gelatin and serve it as a cold terrine. And the traditional way of serving it was just with some sea salt and black pepper and olive oil. And I would serve this on Fridays as just like a merienda, like a snack. And the kids would just eat it. Like, it's just like, there's cold tripe, and let's just dive in there. And I remember, one child being squeamish next to another. Well, actually, we were just surrounded by a whole table of people, of kids, reaching in with their toothpicks and diving in. And there actually was one kid in particular that was very kind of white pasta and white rice, as warned by his parents that he really just doesn't eat much. And slowly each day, just being surrounded by his peers that normalized eating all these different foods, and we would serve all different kinds of things. Sometimes we would like weekly just make a chicken soup with the whole head and feet with this amazing pastured chicken, and the tripe as just an example. And slowly he would just start eating, and he would just start eating almost everything all of a sudden. And I had this idea, if I can just provide parents with this little bit of what I call nourishing screen time that gives them just another tool in the toolbox to say, hey, look what this kid's eating. Not in a way of kind of, you should be eating this because he or she is, but that, look, like, this is an option. And it's kind of this gentle, I think, positive, I don't want to call it peer pressure, but I suppose support that parents can have. And I think if a child can be around that and be surrounded by people that have normalized eating really nourishing food, then that's really worth it to me. And that's what I wanted to provide. And as we know, conversely, if we're surrounded by people in our community or in our personal lives that are doing the opposite and that are eating food that really doesn't serve us, and that of course has a negative impact on a community level as well. So that's kind of the impetus for that piece of it. And I suppose that spans out to what I'm trying to build on a macro level, to provide families with this really, really nourishing piece of not just inspiring content, but actual instruction that they can use as action items to just immediately get in their own kitchens.
So that's what the show's going to be. Is it going to be presenting recipes, or is it going to be presenting the foodstuffs? How are you planning to do that?
So you can think of it as basically walking through the steps of kind of a mini culinary school. And so this first series that I've just wrapped up filming is 5 episodes. And this is essentially like, week 1 of walking into culinary school or walking into the kitchen as your first job, and literally just learning the basics of safety and how to hold a knife and how to cut properly. I shouldn't say properly, but safely and efficiently. And then just working through some culinary basics. And so we start with knife skills and that safety. And of course, we apply it to kind of working with kids. But I should say that even if you don't have kids, it's the same education that I was getting as a kid in culinary school. And then I just walk through and layer on. So we expand on knife skills. We get into egg cookery. We get into kind of building off of the knife skills by, making a perfect meatball, for example, and meat cookery. And on it goes. And so my vision is to start with this as the first course, as kind of a beginner's course / a family kind of reset. And then you'll have the opportunity to grow with me as we continue to film this show. And it kind of dives into deeper themes because it's endless. We could do this forever and never stop cooking.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Andrea, how do you find with your 3? Do you have any experience of them not wanting to eat things, or do they just eat everything that you give them?
Yeah, they'll randomly decide not to eat things, and it doesn't seem to be consistent with, like, sometimes I think, what, this is like a delicious treat, like a dessert that I made. We're not interested. And then randomly another one will be. So we try to have them at least try it. But it doesn't seem to be related to, like, quote, weird foods necessarily. Like, it's more if I get in a rut preparing oatmeal the same way every day, and then I make it a different day, then they're like, what is this? What have you done to us? How dare you? Heretic.
Interesting. Have you showed them any of the videos, any of Aran's videos?
They've seen they watch his Instagram with me. So yeah, they love seeing it. And Aran, I was going to tell you when you talked about the normalizing these kind of healthy behaviors, that's what I call, whenever I hear something like that, I call it pure pressure.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to take that if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so powerful. It feels to me so powerful. You know, your example of the school in Piedmont, that someone could come and have that experience, and then they're completely changed. Their life is completely changed because now it's okay for them to eat tripe. And from then it's obviously okay for them to eat other offal. And that door might have been completely shut for the rest of their life if they'd not had that experience. And so the opportunity to change at the age of, you know, my son's 7, to change children's eating habits for life by opening doors instead of keeping them shut is absolutely astounding, the power in it.
Yeah. And can I say that, you know, I suppose that if for anyone listening that might feel, well, at all different kinds of levels in this, and I might feel like, oh, that's easy, you're a chef, you know how to make it so tasty or whatever. So much of this is about not forcing the issue and just having the foods around. And this is an approach that my wife and I are taking and have been taking with our son, that, you know, we've stopped saying, don't you want to try this, or don't, or like, won't you have some of this, you know, or eat some of this. You know, we'd be so wrapped up into this, like, eat your vegetables or eat this, that. And you know, what is that teaching our kids in terms of trusting their own intuition and trusting their own bodies? And that's something that I think about so much as I struggled navigating that myself, right? So what I want to just do is kind of provide as much kind of abundance of real food and have fun with the variety of those things, and personally have fun with the cooking process, which is just what I do anyways. And then letting him just express his own curiosity and having us trust, you know, his body's got to be telling him something, right? If his body is saying, I don't want that piece of meat, or I don't want that vegetable, or whatever it is, can we trust that, right? And so often, you know, that same item kind of circles back around, as I'm sure you guys experience, and then they want it, you know? And then the next week, maybe they don't. And that's all okay. You know, if you kind of zoom out and look at the course of a few days or a week, as long as you're getting just real good food in your daily rhythms, they're going to get it in there, you know? So
talk to us a little bit about instinct. I just want to dig into it a little bit more, because I know that Andrew and I have talked about this before, that, you know, if you're lacking in nutrients in your system, then your body might be screaming out for something, and you think that thing is chocolate, or you think that thing is ice cream, because you are lacking. And I wonder your take on how you slowly are able to tease out what instinct is the right instinct, if there is such a thing as a right instinct, and what one's the wrong one, and whether we need to actually make the mistakes and go with our instincts anyway in order to traverse that kind of journey and get to where we can trust our instincts. What's your take on that? I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think that's different for all of us, probably, and it's a loaded question that I think we can attack in different ways. The first thing that I've learned to do personally over the years is, if I'm feeling an intense craving, the first thing I do is look to drink some water and hydrate, because it's very well that I'm just thirsty, right? The other thing that I like to do is try to create space and just change the environment. It's like, if I just walk out of the room and kind of change, the space, does it just kind of fade and go away? And very often we're talking about that urge to, like, grab a piece of chocolate or grab a piece of cookie or grab a cookie or whatever it might be. But then you can get, of course, more granular, and the same questions arise. Okay, what am I going to cook now for lunch for myself? What does my body really want, right? And I think that part's harder, you know, and people have different approaches, even down to, like, holding a piece of food in their hand and trying to kind of sense the energy, right? That people even approach it on that kind of level. But zooming out, my main belief is that if we're filling our cupboards and our fridges and our pantries with only really good food, we don't have to worry about that so much, right? Like as a kid, I remember binge eating remember those rolls of Chips Ahoy cookies that would come in like two, actually maybe Alison, you didn't have these, but Andrea, remember like the Chips Ahoy? They would come in two stacks of like there was two plastic stacks. And I remember eating like a whole stack of them, right? They were just around, or Oreos or soda. So if that stuff's around, we're going to get those cues in our environment, because if we open the fridge, which I used to habitually do, which I still do, you walk in the house and you open the fridge. If it's there, it's like, great, sugar, I'm going to eat it, or just that, whatever it is, I'm going to eat it. And that's what I think is so powerful about just creating the environment that sets you up for success. And sometimes that makes for what feels like hard decisions at the beginning, right? To where, oh, what do you mean I'm not going to buy ice cream? I love ice cream, in my home fridge. And it's come to a point slowly over the years where I've just placed much more value on how I feel in my body. And I realize my own tendencies. And if I have like delicious, bucket of ginger snaps that I used to get at Trader Joe's around, like they're so good, they're crunchy and they're a little sweet and they're really gingery. Like if they're around, I'm gonna eat them. So I think if I answer that question right or well, Alison, I think a big part of that is one, looking at your environment and controlling that environment, not like in a controlling way, but being the master of it and being like, okay, I'm just going to fill it with good food. And that doesn't mean sacrifice. It means it's awesome food. It's delicious. And it's food that is going to give you life. And yeah. And then the other thing is even those foods, because like we always have chocolate in our house. We love chocolate. And it's sweetened with coconut sugar. It's like, but I could still eat a couple and the dose makes the poison regardless. Like, and so it's the environment, but then also creating the space. And sometimes that little step out and just getting some air, or just changing what you're doing, just getting out of the kitchen and becoming preoccupied with something else. Sometimes that one shift of 30 seconds makes all the difference. Easier said than done.
That comes across really clearly in what you share. The fact that you use the word breathe a lot. I've noticed through your posts that to actually have a moment of space where you connect and take a break or come back, it enables you to get beyond that noise back to what's real.
Yeah.
Sure.
And let me just add before we close that out, that is a process of kind of finding that ability to tune in. And with it can come messy times and confusing times and friction, right? To where we're potentially, and I've gone through this myself, we're overthinking all the decisions, right? Is this good for me? Is this too much? And that's where that breath comes in. And it's okay also to just make the conscious decision to where like, your body is going to just enjoy the hell out of that really big piece of chocolate, right? And then just eat it slowly and enjoy it. And it's okay too if sometimes you observe, oh, that was a little bit too much. And then you just use that as a bit of information for the next time and just kind of store it away and let it all just be part of the learning process.
Yeah, it's a slow healing process. I agree. I have experienced the same in my life. I wanted to zoom out a bit more and, thinking about how you share the skills, you share the connection, you share the food, you share the kind of nature as well. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about how you feel we're actually going to make the changes to our kids' lives, to the way we eat, to the way the world eats, and how you see your role as part of that. I know it's a huge topic, but it's clear from hearing you talk and looking at what you share on social media and in your videos that you want the world to be different. You're not just working in your own kitchen. And I'd like to hear your perspective on, are you optimistic about it? And how do you think we're actually going to make the change that we all want to see?
So let me start. I like to tell stories, and this one I think will kind of set us up, because I can get very caught up in the global macro problems that I see. And just to kind of set the background, I'll use an example of this story that really has marked me. I had this really cool opportunity to work in China for a few months. I was on this island called Hainan off the southern coast. And I was there to open this Italian restaurant on the beach that this Italian entrepreneur had opened, and he was reopening it, kind of renovating. Long story short, one day we were in town in the main city, Sanya, that we were near. And my friend took me to this incredible food market, right? You kind of walked in, it was almost like this alleyway. And there was like every example of regional Chinese cuisine that it was so beautiful. And it was a feast for every sense in my body. And we would go there actually multiple times, and I would go and have dumplings or soup and all kinds of a myriad of different foods. But the first time that I went there, I was struck by, it was lunchtime, and I'm like, why isn't it that busy? And we had lunch, and I remember we walked out of the other side of this kind of alleyway, and I looked up, and there was this 3-story KFC with a line out the door.
Wow.
And my heart just like sunk. I'm like, we're here in this incredible place with such rich culinary heritage, with every opportunity in the world to eat the most nourishing food and the most delicious food. And here comes, KFC looking, to expand their market share. And this is to speak poorly. This isn't to, I suppose, shame these companies, because I do hope that they're going to be they're going to need to be, I think, or hopefully they will be part of a solution for us moving forward. But what I saw there was so devastating. But at the same time, I also saw this like really interesting opportunity to where right there, right next to each other, was an opportunity to make a value shift, right? And on the one hand, there's a value of, look at all this beautiful food that is so delicious, that is so rich in history, that has so many stories, so many human stories attached to it, right? So much opportunity not to just heal us and have delicious food and create new memories, and to also heal our environment, to grow food in a deliberate way that we can rebuild ecosystems. And then on the other hand, there's this, this chain that has this highly addictive, and I suppose on some level you could say also delicious food that also has, built supply chains that I suppose you could call an opportunity in a way, right? Mm-hmm. How can we start to shift back to, and I suppose I'm projecting my own beliefs, by doing this, but how can we shift back to the beauty of what we already had and that we knew intuitively was right? We never even questioned it because it was just so damn good and so part of, and so weaved into the fabric of everyday life, that incredible cuisine, those incredible cuisines. And that example, I think, exists in almost every nook and cranny of the whole entire world, except for the fact that in so many places, we don't, so many of us are not fortunate enough to have that market, right? And have all that availability of amazing foods. As we know, in massive swaths of even the United States, you just don't even have access to fresh, raw ingredients for miles, right? Now, that's the big macro picture that I can get so wrapped up in, right? But the reason why I think it's pertinent to us talking about is that a lot of us do have the opportunity to make that decision, okay? And again, and what I'm about to say is not about shaming anyone for making their decisions, because I was there not too long ago, eating late night Wendy's or whatever it was, and enjoying it at that time years back. But I made the decision where it wasn't just that I didn't want to eat McDonald's because it wasn't good for my body, but it started to become a moral decision that I knew by putting my dollars in that place that I was supporting someone else's disease. And the same goes for buying a Coke or a Pepsi or a Nestle product. And I really see that as, I think a lot of people might see that as a hard pill to swallow, but on a level, you have to acknowledge that that is a reality, right? These foods, they cause disease. Like if you drink Coca-Cola or Diet Coke, it is disease causing, right? So it's harming someone else. And this is where, so many people talk about this idea of voting with our dollars. And I used to think of it only in the sense of whatever I'm voting for, I'm voting for. So if I'm spending money on my organic veggies or my local pasture-raised food, I'm supporting that system, right? I didn't really think of so much as the other people that are really making a strong vote when they're going to a Subway or going to a KFC to perpetuate that system, right? And you are voting no matter what. You're voting no matter what. And are we voting for a system that is really letting us down? It's letting us down, not just our individual health, our community health, and the health of our environment. Can we have the courage to say, you know what? I am going to make that decision. There's been so much divisive talk about a completely other, another issue entirely this last year and a half. Are we considering the food choices we're making as impacting the whole? And I really believe that there's immense power if we can start to do this and talk about it with an open heart and in a loving way without shaming each other, and start to build these conversations block by block and community by community, and let them spread out to, different projects that we can act. I went to culinary school in Montpelier, Vermont, and Montpelier decided that they weren't going to allow a McDonald's, in their town. That means something for the health of that, of that town. So I know that was a long-winded answer, and I don't even remember where we started, but that's okay. So that's the macro, and then the little decisions that we can make on a small individual level. And we can dive deeper, but let me just refresh and give it back to you.
I think that conversations is kind of really important in that. And the fact you said we have them block by block and then community by community, that we start a conversation as an individual with someone else, and then that conversation rippling out to another person, to a community, to a group, to a government, to a town council. That's one way that we can make change. And perhaps as individuals, in our own homes and our own four walls, who aren't people in power necessarily, that's the way that we will change.
Yeah. It has to be that way. And we look at you see so many, and not to speak in like it's all dark and it's all gloomy, because look at the trends that we're seeing. So many people are interested in organic because people are bringing up the concerns that they have about the system that we know is harming us, right? And you're so right. And it does need to kind of infiltrate it needs to infiltrate politics, because as we know, the cheap food that is harming us is subsidized, and it's cheap for a reason, because the government is subsidizing it. And imagine if that were flipped, imagine if the government if so many taxpayer resources were going towards regenerative farms and regenerative ag. And
that's my dream.
Right. Mm-hmm. And actually, and taking away the private interests of, the food pyramid, and starting to really properly educate, not even just educate, but just get rid of that private interest and rebuild a food system that we know in our hearts, like we know is a better way, right?
Amen. Andrea, do you want to jump in? My questions are all kind of philosophical, and I know you've got some practical questions as well.
Yeah, we should have warned you, Aran. Alison only asks loaded and intense questions.
Well, I think now they're right up my alley.
I like those discussions.
Aran, what you were saying, okay, I told you I went to 4 farms yesterday. We were doing one of our big yearly hauls of food that we bring back and we preserve and basically squirrel away for the winter. And when I went out to the first farm, we've gone out there and picked a few times before. And this year it was awful. I mean, there was almost virtually no tomatoes. The peppers were hardly producing. It was really bad. And you mentioned, Aran, right before we started recording, that you heard about the heat wave that we had out here. And the farmer was telling me the week they had put all the starts out, then there was a massive heat wave out here. And it basically everybody in the valley suffered, and the tomatoes, everything did pretty horrible. And the potatoes, literally, like potatoes actually cooked in the ground. When they went to dig the potatoes and they pulled them up, they were mush, like they broke in your hand like a tomato already cooked. And he was talking about how it's been getting harder and harder every year to farm out there in the Yakima Valley, Washington State. And when you talk about it infiltrating politics, and how it has in kind of a negative way, there's another problem we have out here, which is there's one guy who's buying up tons of farmland. He's the largest farmland owner in the United States now. But he's buying up this farmer's neighbor's land and not farming on it. It's just vacant land. It's not even being worked. But what's worse is he's buying up the land around the waterways and then not allowing access to the waterways. It's a desert out there. So without the water, it's pretty bad. And they haven't had rain in a couple months. And so I asked the farmer, because he talked about how politically it's the squeeze around the farmers' necks. We talked about some specific bills and things that have been passed. It's very, very hard for them to find workers. It's very hard to keep workers, pay workers. Everything's getting more challenging for the farms. And it's all kind of turning in favor of huge, mega, factory farm operations.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, if you could say one thing to the people of America, what would you say? And he said, I was holding a box of bell peppers. He said, I would say, if I could tell anybody one thing, I would say, start learning how to grow your own food now. Because you think people are mad when they run out of toilet paper, wait till they run out of food. And he said, wait until that bell pepper in your hand costs $12 next year. He said almost everybody he knows who farms has left the state. And he said, you watch when the small farms go, every time a small farm goes, you're one step closer to having to rely on the government for your food, because all that is left is farms that are subsidized and supported and run largely by the government. And that's an easy thing for somebody to control. So when we got to the next farm, which was a longtime dairyman who is getting close to retiring, I asked him the same question. I said, if you could say one thing, what would you say? And I didn't tell him what the other farmer said yet. I just asked him, what would you say? And he stopped. He's standing in his kitchen. He was getting out jars for me to take home, some raw colostrum. And he stopped and he goes, if I could say one thing, I would say, when you're driving down the street, you stop at Ace Hardware, you stop at the farm stand, because if you don't, they are not going to be there anymore. And you won't have the choice anymore. You think you have the choice to choose where you shop now, but the choice is going to disappear. And I was like, wow, they both said the same thing. And then you're saying the same thing. And Alison is saying the same thing. And I'm saying the same thing. I think where we shop, you have really, really connected to the crux of the matter here, is that we need to choose where we are shopping now, or we really won't have the option in the future.
Yeah.
And the story of the guy, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if for nothing else, out of solidarity for those that do not have the choice, let us choose wisely. And us being those that have that choice still. Yeah. Sorry, Alison.
That's okay. I was just going to say the story of the butcher that you talked about in Piedmont. I bet the relationship that you had with him and that any of the kids that met had with him was one that was full and rich and fed you and fed your soul as well. And the relationship that Andrea had going and meeting those farmers compared to, going into a faceless big shop with electric lights and freezers. It's something that we're built as humans for that connection. And so not only the food, but the community and the people is such a huge part of it, Andrew. And you going and visiting those farms just illustrates it so clearly.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And, it wasn't that long ago when most of us have this direct relationship with the food that we were growing ourselves. And if it wasn't us, it was our neighbor, right?
Yep.
What was the percentage? The percentage pre-World War II was something like 45 or 55%. I want to say it was 45% of all the food produced in the States was on small family farms.
Yeah.
And so right now it's like this last line. If we don't build this connection, we are going to have a complete disconnect between our source of food and us. And we know what goes wrong when we outsource, right? And so much of what I'm trying to bring is just this like light switch of, of this desire to connect just one step closer to our food system. And that very last line, I was going to say the last line of defense, but the very last, piece of it is our own kitchens, right? Because so many of us are still outsourcing the takeout to where we're not even cooking our own food, right? So many of us. My wife, at the time we were just dating, we were looking for an apartment in Manhattan, and she was visiting apartments at the time. This was 10 years ago, that didn't even have an oven or a stovetop.
Wow.
And she would go in and be like, "Where's the oven?" She's like, "Oh, it's New York. Like most people eat out," right? That's just like a little example. It's like, whoa. So yes. And let me just say, for our kids, what an opportunity if we are connecting, right? How fun is it? Is it easy necessarily? No. Look, every Wednesday, we have our rituals. My wife actually went this morning to one farmer's market where we like to get our fish and certain produce that this woman, Ophelia, that I just love. And she loves Rafa and she loves Caroline. If it's me, if it's me that goes, she says, "Give a kiss to your wife." They know us now, right? I know Ophelia and her husband, and I trust the food that she produces. And there's an energetic exchange of what can only be called love between us, right?
Absolutely.
And then on Wednesdays, which today's Wednesday, is today Wednesday? No. Where are we? Oh, today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm like, wait a minute. I have to go to the market, guys. Tomorrow's Wednesday, and I'm looking kind of in the direction of where the market is that we go on Wednesdays. And that's where we have like staple stalls and it's awesome. It's a really cool market that has green awnings for all of the practicing organic stalls, and then blue awnings for those that aren't. And so I just kind of circle the green awnings, and I've got my lady that does kombucha and has amazing veggies. There's this amazing guy that sprouts all his grains. He does only gluten-free. And so it's sourdough, gluten-free bread. He uses teff flour. He uses a lot of buckwheat. Incredible. The only thing he hasn't done yet is nixtamalize his corn for his bread. And then another woman she's from France. Her husband makes incredible sourdough bread that's organic, and she makes ginger beer. And they've become, our closest friends here. And our son plays with their son. And it's like our whole fabric is literally revolving around the networks that we're making around basically these markets and where we're getting our food. And my God, like what joy that we can, that this presents as an opportunity, right? And what's the, what's one of the byproducts of this is we get to eat some of the most delicious food on the planet, right? And then I know we can get into but it's more expensive. Oh, but you have a car and can drive there. And yes, those are all layers of complication, right? But look, this is what I'm voting for. This is what I believe in. And I really, really hope that my decisions to do this on a daily and weekly basis are going to impact, the masses. So I think it's worth it.
Absolutely.
I don't quite know where to go from there. Andrea, help me out.
Well, I do agree with Aran. Actually, when you said that, Aran, I was remembering when we moved, and we've moved a number of times with the military. And I was just thinking back, and everywhere we moved, I had to find food. So I always think in my head, my categories, I had to find meat, I have to find milk, I had to find fruit and vegetables. That's kind of the big ones. And every place we moved, I'm thinking back, I'm still friends very good friends, very close friends, even went into business with some of these people, talked to them every day. And I met them all through food, all of them.
Yeah.
All of them through going to the farmer's market, talking to the farmer, and then saying, hey, can I volunteer on the farm, or can I work on the farm? Can I work share on the farm? And I mean, wow, all my friends came from food.
Yeah. And I want to step back because I want to mention another friend of mine. Before we even met anyone here, we were connecting on Facebook, actually, and I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. I'm more on Instagram with this little project. But I was connecting over this group of Algarve. I don't forget what the community was. And this woman wrote back, and we were kind of going back and resonating. She was from Oregon and she was moving to the area. We were just like really hitting off around food and where we're going to get our grass-fed beef when we go here. And that one too, we hadn't even moved here yet. And we were already setting up our kind of like supply and like our go-to places. And lo and behold, we become amazing friends with them, and our son's best friends with their two girls. And again, it's just another example. It's like, it's the value. Like, and I really think coming back full picture, it's if we can place value on getting food right first. And when I say right, I mean getting food right for us, to where we can get our rituals down, we can build our skill level in the kitchen to where everything is just, for the most part, just working with less friction. I really think that life can kind of grow from there, and you can kind of span out and work from there. But if we don't have food right, what do we have, right? Or we're just kind of facing an uphill battle, I think, if we're doing that.
And I exhort the audience to go check out Aran's Instagram, because nothing on your Instagram says to me restriction. In fact, sometimes I think people are afraid. I know I was, certainly before I started really going into this world, that, oh no, if I'm going to eat, as you say, we'll call it right, then I don't have as many options. But all I see is the further you go in here, the more options you have, really.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And the more you realize, whoa, I was missing out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's and you can go on forever. Yeah. And it's a lifetime. It's food. It's a lifetime of discovery.
Yeah.
I mean, like I know we were going to talk about, I don't know if we have time, like the injera that I made a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
My God, what an opportunity, right? And if we want, I do want to leave people with some kind of action items that have worked for me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you for something. Okay, don't close this. Don't close this down yet, Aran.
No, I got all day.
Okay, great. I have a question for you on the practical side. I like to think that I am the one with the easy questions, but I know everything ends up being philosophical when your whole life is, when your whole life is aligned and in tune with how you believe and how you live. So this is my question for you. I have had such a great opportunity to work with a number of chefs and get to work in their kitchens, and even go in and teach chefs how to make sauerkraut and things like that. And nothing really just tickles me more than getting to go into a commercial kitchen. And these kitchens that I've gone into are all farms that, source directly out, or restaurants that source directly out of farms and have really high quality, high standards and things like that. So it's really the best of the best examples for me to get to see. But every time I'm in those kitchens, I'm just blown away by all these little, I don't know what to call it, tips and tricks that these chefs have that is just habitual things. I'll say something like as simple as, I don't know, every single thing that goes in the fridge gets like labeled and dated and sometimes the time stamped, right? Yep. Like, I just love stuff like that. So I just eat that stuff up. So this is my question for you. You're a professional chef. You also work in your home kitchen. We're all in our home kitchens. What is something that you bring home from the commercial kitchen to your home kitchen? Maybe some skills or tips that you think could translate over to us.
Yeah. Okay. So let me first say, this is an interesting thing, because this might come across as, oh, he's a restaurant chef, or he came from that world. cooking at home must be so easy, right? And this is actually speaks to the point of environment, right? When I put myself in the home kitchen, I don't necessarily bring all the habits that I had in the restaurant world, right?
Right.
So I'm not labeling everything with nice blue tape and even cutting the sides of that tape so it's not torn off, but it's cut off and it's flat.
That's so funny because I've been told anybody who rips my tape, what will happen to them?
Yes. Admittedly, I sometimes rip.
Oh, you don't, never.
But if you can take this home, there are two main points, I think, to a really special and well-run kitchen, right? And I hope this is what I and this is what we were working towards in almost every kitchen that I was a part of. And a great kitchen has great systems. Okay, what I mean by systems, it literally just means like, and we all deal with this in our day to day. It's like, how well do you organize your email or your to-do list or your small business or whatever it is, right? And so it's like at the last restaurant that I worked at in Concord, Mass, such a special place, and these people are dear to my heart still. And by the way, they've moved. We were organic practicing, and they're moving on to full-on regenerative practices at their farm.
Wow, good for them.
Farm. And so we had this very, very in-depth operation of organic farm, cooking school at the farm, catering business, which that was our original, those were our projects. And then we opened a restaurant and a brewery, inside that restaurant. On top of all that, so we're catering, we're doing weddings. We've got this restaurant that's open from, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like none of that would survive without, having really well organized lists on a clipboard. Everyone knows where that clipboard is, right? You know what time you have to order by for your next day. And we're ordering from ourselves, basically, our own farm and the other farms, because when we're sourcing from other farms, we're just calling those farms up. It's not all this like one, Cisco distributor that we would be ordering from. We were the anti that, right? Uh-huh. So we were only as good as we were organized. And on a home level, that can be so simple as just having like a good sheet. And one of the things that that people will get in this course that I'm offering, that will be coming out this fall, is my go-to shopping list for the US. So you can even, and I'm actually going to do a US and an EU version of it, as I'm kind of putting together that here in the EU, where people can kind of work off of that and have my favorite go-tos. So it could be as easy as that, right? But taking a step back, it's setting an intention for the week. And this is the other piece of it. It's the systems and the intention, right? And so if you can set an intention for your meals that week, right? Or, leading into your shopping, then you have got like some feel and some heart and some energy, underneath those decisions of what you're going to buy, what you're going to cook, how you're going to kind of organize your week to get all those things right? And this is something that my wife and I have started to do. And one of the big reasons why we do that is because sometimes there's friction over what we're eating, because she's a woman. She has different needs than I do. She's also just another human being, right? So we have different wants and desires and needs, and those things shift monthly, depending on the time of the month, depending on the season, for all of us. And of course, bring in the layer of having a 4-year-old.
Right.
So we've started to weekly on Sundays get together and talk about our intentions for the week, not just for, food, but for our whole kind of household, right?
Yeah.
But we do it around food. And I ask her, how are you feeling about what we're eating? Would you like more of something this week? And we just openly talk about it. And then that informs, the coming week. All right. So that's kind of big picture stuff. And on the small level, once you've kind of gotten that figured out, and that can just take 5 minutes. It's like, we're going to eat more. Let's say you're vegan. Like, I want to eat more black beans this week. I want to start to kind of, I've been craving Mexican, so let's make a batch of sofrito and maybe freeze it, or,
right.
All those little things, right? It's just once you get the intention set and once you kind of talk about what you want to eat, then you can start to plan ahead. Okay. And So from there, then you can, if it's in your consciousness and you've got your list, and maybe it is your list in your planner of what you want to eat each day. And if you look at it, it's Wednesday and tomorrow you've got, let's just say, going back to those black beans, it's like, okay, get those black beans on to soak, because I've learned from Andrea or Alison or Aran or Weston A. Price that I need to soak those to make them less toxic and more bioavailable, right? And so I'm gonna plan ahead and get those soaking. And the next day in the morning when I'm making my coffee, I'm going to put those on to cook and let them simmer away, right? Maybe with a little bit of kombu. So like, it's just like, that's it. And when food becomes, I don't want to necessarily say the center of your world, but at least a primary focus, then it all can start to take in place, but come into place. And no matter if you're at a place where like, what are you talking about? Soaking your beans? Can't you just, wherever you are, right? If you can just take a breath. Again, I know I talk about breath a lot, and take a step towards learning a little bit, right? And maybe that's investing in, something that I'm offering, or just listening to this amazing podcast, right? And just starting to absorb. And you can keep it simple at the beginning, and just like, remember, like, if you could just get some ground meat at the store and cook it with just salt, how good does that taste just out of a pan before you've added anything else?
Really? So good.
Right? And like, and grass-fed ground beef, right, or lamb, you can get as cheap as $6 a pound, right? And price per nutrient, that, I'm sorry, has got to be better than whatever you can get at McDonald's, right? And once you stop buying like Coke and Doritos, like, you have much more money to spend on the really good stuff that will sustain you. So are there other little things in terms of organization that could serve, or does that kind of set the scene a little bit?
I think the principle is what I was going for. And I really like that. The great kitchen has great systems. And I'm thinking about, you said there, you were basically ordering from yourself at that restaurant. And that's, in a way, that's how it is out here. After doing that Patreon episode with Lexi about meal planning, I've been working harder on actually basically, I guess, doing what you said, sitting down and setting the intention. What are we going to eat for the week? And then it does kind of feel like I have an order list, because I have to go out to the freezers. I have to go out to the garage where all the jars are stored, and I kind of bring in the things that we'll need the next day. So it's kind of feels like ordering or shopping, except the shop is in the garage. And I like the idea of that. Like, I really, really like that.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll add is, when you do that, you can start to kind of plan your activities around these things. So like,
right.
Like, my son is with me at the market, but for example, a couple of weeks ago, we went blueberry picking, right? And like, one, how fun is it just to be outside and to go and do this, right? But is there a better gift to your kids than to go like blueberry picking, right?
Yeah.
To get them holding a bucket, moving around and seeing where this one example of, foods that they eat, where it comes from. And my God, like, is there a better way to spend our time? One thing I want to share that I jotted down, because this is another layer that I know comes up with people, is that I just don't have the time, right? And I looked up out of curiosity how much the average American spends on their phone.
Oh, no.
And I saw different results, right? And spending on your phone, okay, if you're listening to this podcast, which I think is nourishing, I know that takes up part of this time, and you could be cooking during it, but it's around 5 hours. Wow. And and that's an average. Wow. So sometimes higher, right?
Yeah.
So I really think it's such a myth that we don't have the time. And I think if we can and start to play with that concept, like, it's like, well, how can we flip that and be like, well, where are there ways that we can have really fun time with our kids? And I know it's not, a brand new idea to go apple picking or berry picking with our kids, but I also think there's power in starting to, take them along in some of the harder ones to engage with, like where you might get your chickens locally, and start to have some of those real conversations that I think that they're important. We don't tiptoe around necessarily, even for our young kids.
Lexi said something, Aran, that I think you will love this. I think she was quoting another mom who had taught her this. And the mom said, by the time a child is 7, they should be contributing, or they can be contributing more to the household than they're taking out. And that doesn't start by training the child when they're 7. It starts when they're young. And I've seen your son in the kitchen with you working, and he's, halfway to the 7-year mark, right?
Yeah.
Like, he will very much be contributing in a number of ways. And I've noticed, Lexi's son, who I think he's maybe 8, he can make the sourdough bread for the family. And,
wow.
To have children being that doesn't mean that she just started training him yesterday. She's allows her children to be in the kitchen with her. And if anybody is on the Patreon, go over and listen to that interview with her. It was really fun. But I love the way seeing these moms, especially moms with a lot of kids, because then it becomes vital. You really can't run a house on your own when you have 10 people in the house. You need your team around you. And that, I think, is a great way for kids to, just participate in life and feel like they're a necessary member of the fabric and contribute. And
also have some fun. I think that's been
so
really important with Gabriel, that I've made these things fun. And I see that in your videos that you've got on Instagram, because you're having so much fun when you're doing it. And I'm really excited that if you can share the injera with us on the Patreon to make it as fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Totally.
So I could be entertained as well.
Alison, when Tiffany was here and we did all those peaches, we had the buckets lined up on the deck of water, like soapy water, and then rinse, and then a dry bucket. And I told Tiffany, I said, well, this is, don't kids go to Montessori classes and just move items from bucket to bucket? Yeah. You know what I mean? But this is actual work that's needed. The whole family, both our families will have peaches all winter, and the kids contributed to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I have goosebumps because I wanted to just mention an example of a story of my childhood that I think holds such meaning for me.
Yes.
And I love what you're bringing up in terms of the child contributing, not from a sense of that they need to be doing it, right? But as an opportunity for them to engage and feel a sense of ownership and pride over contributing to the day-to-day, right? And I have this memory that of my childhood when, I always navigated towards the kitchen projects, whether it was my dad, who, shout out to my dad, he's the guy that he always did the turkey for Thanksgiving. He's always the one cooking the meat. It's a total stereotypical, he would grill meat, right? But he was really into stir frying, and he loved to make beef and broccoli. And side note on him, he's the one that taught me how to temp meat. He knew, he's if it feels this way, you're probably around medium. He just knew those things. My dad, who grew up in Chelsea, Mass, I grew up working in different Jewish delis and just being around food. But the story started with my mom, and my mom would make matzo ball soup for us very often on Friday nights, especially in the colder months. And it was just one of those things that started where I would help my mom pick the chicken. So she would boil the chicken and then pull it out and then just pick the meat that was tender. And I get goosebumps thinking about those moments because, I grew up in a family of 7, or I have 4 brothers and sisters. And there weren't a ton of moments when we were alone and had one-on-one time with one of our parents, right? There was just always another sibling around. There's always so many of us. For some reason, I remember these different moments of being alone with my mom and having her full attention and picking this chicken and feeling honored and proud that I was helping her. My mom, who was an English teacher and then a school principal and the mom of 5, my God. But also just feeling, and looking back, what a beautiful sense of presence, just being in the kitchen with my mom. And also that tattoo of taste of that chicken and the smell of that chicken soup, which is why I wanted to do that chicken soup for the kids on Fridays in Piemonte, because that was such a part of my story. And, these little moments, these are the gifts that we can be giving to ourselves and to our kids and to our families, and that we can be passing along to future generations, because we really are at a crossroads, I think, as a global civilization and multiple different cultures, where we're starting to see a multi-generational gap now of this lack of these traditions. But at the same time, you can sense, right? And maybe we're a testament to that there's this yearning and this resolve to hold on and to build new, and to kind of maybe right what has definitely kind of gone astray with so many of our food systems. So
give us your practical takeaways of that then, because you said you had some things you wanted to leave us with, and with that kind of motivation, it would be wonderful to hear what's important.
Well, if you can hold on to that idea of my mother and I in the kitchen, right? And maybe close your eyes and think about a moment that you've experienced in your own life that is similar with your parent, or maybe you're a parent yourself with your child now. And think about what it feels like, right? Like, what does it feel like to be present in the act of cooking for someone, or being on the receiving end of a loving meal from someone else? And I just ask you, like, is that worth fighting for in your life? Is that worth preserving in your life? And is that worth spreading, to other families and to your friends and to communities and to your community? And does that look like a better world than, the system where we're outsourcing and we're spraying a bunch of chemicals on massive monocrops that are destroying our ecosystem, and seemingly sounding very dark, and the KFCs of the world, right? And I really think if we can hone in and just place the value on the former, we can build, and I really think we are building, such a beautiful existence, and one that is free of the chronic disease and this reliance on different medications just to get us through every day. That is not normal, right? I think that our birthright can be this like vibrant health and this vibrant, really joyous existence, and it can be with having the most amazing, delicious food for ourselves and for the people around us. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that simple value shift.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Andrea, we're getting close to time. Is there anything else that you want to ask now?
Yeah, we missed this in the beginning, so I want to ask Aran, what's the last thing you ate before you got on here?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
I didn't have breakfast, so I just want to hear what you had.
I did.
Me too.
It's 4:15. The last thing I ate was roasted mackerel.
Ooh, yum.
So this morning I actually, so I'm a coffee drinker, but I'm very particular about my coffee. I drink like really good kind of hipster, organic, like organic coffee from, single origin farms across the world. And I just love coffee. And I was out of it. And just for the fun of it, I thought, hey, with my son, let's go out and have a coffee and we'll get fish at the fish market. And so I picked up some mackerel. And I just want to share, like, at this local fish market, and this is off of a boat that I may have been looking at one of those boats this morning when I woke up. It was $2.50 a kilo for these small mackerel. And I prefer the small fish just for the kind of low heavy metal toxicity in the smaller, younger fish. So I'll eat a lot of sardines, which are in season now, and small mackerel or shellfish. But so I picked those up and I filleted them. And one of my favorite things to do is kind of a Japanese approach of salting and kind of marinating in a little bit of mirin, like true mirin, not like I think it's called aji mirin, which is like glucose syrup. And that's really not what you're looking for. Or just honestly, like you could do a dash of like a rice vinegar if you wanted to, just a little bit. But the mirin is more sweet, not vinegary. And I just had that marinated for like 20 minutes. So what I do is while I'm filleting the mackerel and degutting it, I have basically a big sheet pan, and I put a layer of salt and mirin, and I'll just keep on adding the fillets. And when I have one layer, I'll add a little bit of mirin and salt. And I'll just kind of layer on top of that if I have more. And by the time I'm done filleting all the fish, basically I'm ready to cook. And I just basically roast those in a very hot oven, skin side up, so the skin gets a little bit crispy. And honestly, that's all I had actually before going on here. Just very often I'll just eat kind of clean like that.
Thank you for remembering that question, Andrea. That was really nice to listen to.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I'm hungry.
I wanted to say, so the price, guess what the price of per kilo that fish was in the market?
Oh, yes. You said.
Did I tell you? Did I say the price?
$2.50.
You did.
Oh, all right. I did already.
Yeah.
So $2.50 a kilo. And for the American friends, that's, a kilo is 2.2 pounds, right? So
that's crazy.
125.
Yeah.
Like,
that's ridiculous. And didn't you was it mackerel? You showed us how to fillet on Instagram.
Yeah. That's in there.
Yeah.
That's in there. And I do, that is going to be part of, I think, season 2 when we get into more fish cookery. I do in the first series work on cooking shrimp, which is one of our go-tos. Wild shrimp, I think, is such an underused and underappreciated, healthy and fast, just nutrient bomb.
Yeah.
And so malleable, and you can just take it anywhere. They do cover that, but I do want people kind of feeling comfortable with taking home their whole fish if they have aspects.
I think it's a big one. I mean, a lot of people that I've spoken to just don't feel confident with fish like they do.
Yeah, totally.
And
so where can people find you?
Andrew. I was just going to ask that. We'll link it, but tell us where we can find you. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to give you my address in the Algarve right now. If you are locally, you can hit me up. I might be doing some cooking in person for some retreats and friends that of mine that are doing some cool things.
Actually say physically. I don't think we said on the.
Yeah, I'm in the south of Portugal in the Algarve, close to the southwest tip in a place called Lagos. Really cool. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think we're going to hang out here for a while. But online, I'm on Instagram at Chef Aran Goldstein. It's Aran, Aran Goldstein. Or my new website, which is coming together, is called cookandlive.co. No M. Cookandlive.co. And that will be a place where you can eventually sign up for this course and sign up for a newsletter that I'm going to be restarting up in a couple of weeks. And we can go from there. I do also have a YouTube channel that's also Chef Aran Goldstein or Cook and Live, where I have some old instructional videos when I first dove into to being behind camera a couple of years ago. And I really think those are super valuable if people are looking to get started with some instruction.
Great.
Yeah, I've seen some of them. They are super valuable.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye, Aran?
I would love to flip this and turn the camera on you guys for the next hour and talk to you. I dream, you guys have been so inspiring to me because I dream of having my own podcast as well, because as you can tell, it's not just food that I'm so passionate about. It's really all the different kind of tentacles of human health, but also just the kind of human experience spanning out from food. But I just do want to say that I'm grateful to both of you. I've loved listening to your work and engaging with you guys. I find such inspiration in that. And just sending you guys a lot of love. And I'm really, really happy to have had this time with you. And I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait.
Same back to you, for sure.
And Alison,
awesome.
we're going to see him back in the Patreon feed soon, right? There's a special feed.
Yeah, hopefully with some teff in Jira.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, I'm ready for that.
Are we going to do a video version of that? Or
Yeah. I'd like to.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
I think that'll be fun. Wonderful. Well, thank you ever so much for your time, Aran.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation. Come find us on Instagram. Andrea's at Farm and Hearth and Alison's at ancestral_kitchen. Until next time, we both wish you much fun, exploration, and satisfaction in and out of the kitchen.